Welcome back to the channel. This is going to be a full maintenance rundown, all the fluids, service points, and other little tips and tricks for a Model 50 John Deere 2-cylinder. This is going to be the same for a 50, 60, and a 70 gas, and should be relatively close for a late A or B. It might go somewhere into the 20 series and 30 series 2-cylinders. It might not. I'm not familiar with them, but tag along. You might learn a thing or two. First thing you need to do, if you are not familiar with this tractor, if you did not grow up with it, stop right now, jump on Amazon or call your Deere dealer. You need an operator's manual. There is no way to avoid it. Just spend the money. Reason being, the old operator's manuals like this are about 200 pages, and there's a lot of service information, more than what you normally get out of your modern ones. Just order it. It's going to save you a lot of headache in the long run. So I'm going to break this up into about 4, maybe 5 parts. So if you see it on the end of this video, part 1 or 2 or 3, just go to my channel, keep going in. Starting low, there's a grease zerk right on your hub. I run about 35 PSI on the front tires, but I do tractor rides with my tractor, not so much field work. In between, you'll have a grease zerk there, and the hair. It's going to match on the other side. Check your wheel bearings. Chances are they haven't been repacked in a long time, so it's probably just a good idea to just pull it all apart, clean them, inspect them, and pack them all back up. In the operator's manual, gives a good overall grease chart and shows you what you need for the other front ends. One other thing of note, a lot of these tractors had what's the front mount for a cultivator right here. Plate of steel, probably got a hole torched in it to push wagons in to buildings because reverse on all 2 cylinders is just way too fast for what it is. Moving up now, if you have power steering on your tractor, I don't have it on mine. The sticker is there, but somebody put a different nose on my tractor. 53, it wasn't an option yet. You'll have a little cap right here, and there should be a dipstick, I think. I am not sure, not on my tractor, but somebody along the lines farmerized mine and actually put a grease zerk there. So underneath your nose cone, if you have manual steering, right off your shaft is basically just a worm gear that goes down and spin your front wheels. Good practice would be to just pull your nose cone off, pull the cover off, repack it with grease. It actually should have what's called multi-luber in it. It comes in like a quart bottle. You pour it in like oil, and it thickens like grease. Most John Deere dealerships and just anybody doesn't use it anymore. You know what it is. Just a packet of grease and move on with life. One other thing I'm going to draw your attention to, if your tractor has not been farmerized with miscellaneous hardware, is clutch head fasteners. So you see that weird looking fastener right there. Kind of reminds you what you see, say, on a bathroom stall. That is called clutch head. Clutch as in clutch. You can still get these. You can still get the tools to take them out. Napa has their Carlisle brand. They have them. If not, you can get fancy ones from Snap-on, but they are still there. If you want to just put regular bolts in, they are 1/4, 3/8 standard coarse thread bolts. But if you're a purist, there you go. Clutch head bolts. That should cover just about everything under here. We're going to move on now to underneath the main hood, which is going to be mostly engine related. Alright, now on to the fun part, the engine work. So, first thing you want to do is check your radiator core. Make sure that it is clear of chaff, mice nest, baler twine, what have you. Next, you want to check your belt. Make sure your belt is in serviceable condition and tight. Be a good time to probably just pop it off and check your water pump, your fan bearings, your fan shaft, all of that. While we're talking about the fan shaft, if you can see right there, that pipe plug, it actually is a 1,000-hour service interval to remove that and oil it. So, remove it, oil it, and then forget about it. While we're right over here, if your tractor has the generator still, you'll have an oil cap on the front and rear bearing. Just a little cap. I'll have a little clip later on in this video. Just lift the lid, drizzle a little oil in there. While we're on this side, check your blow-by tube, what I would call it. Make sure that it is actually clean if your tractor's been sitting for a while and you don't get mud wasp or anything packing that up in there. Spark plugs, the gap is 30 thousandths. My tractor loves 386 auto lights. It hates Champions, really does not like Delcos, it loves auto lights. And while we're back on here, your serial number tag is right below your distributor, or in my case, a magneto. My tractor was assembled with a lot of leftover late model B parts, being such an early serial number, sub first 2000. So if you have a distributor, just service it like you would points, condenser. If you got a mag, service it like you would a mag, points, condenser, possibly rebuild it. Or just be a cool kid and put a distributor back on your magneto tractor eventually and put electronic ignition on it. I know people don't like it, but electronic ignition is just a lot handier to deal with. Moving back on to the next side, or I should say the other side. Oil bath air cleaners. Remove your wing bolt here, pull it off, you'll see a line inside. Fill it with clean engine oil, not the waste oil you drained out of your crankcase. There'll be a dirt donut in here, just clean it out. The operator's manual actually says use gasoline. Don't, just use brake clean like normal people. Working our way back, carburetor. I strongly encourage putting a petcock on these so you can drain them. These carburetors are very expensive to get rebuilt because you have to send them out to a machine shop and get the little balls knocked out of them. Or should I say machined out of them. You can try and soak and spray, but usually it's just a bit, it's too much for your average Joe. If you look on top there, that little brass plug, that's actually a screen. You can take that out and clean it. Other thing of note, I actually cut in an extra fuel filter and shut off on my tractor just because it's a mag, so it gives me one extra way to kill it. There is, though, a Napa filter kit that you can put in your sediment bowl. Now we're going to talk about this for a second. This is an automatic fuel shutoff. It runs off oil pressure. You see the two lines here. These shutoffs are absolutely notorious for leaking and sending all of your gas into the carb and eventually into your crankcase. Be preventative, rebuild it or get a new one. Steiner tractor has rebuild kits and new ones. Also, there's a little bypass on the top that you can use if your tractor, you say you emptied the carb because you're going to store it, you can use that to bypass and get some fuel in your carb. So, one other thing of note, and this is just for pure nerdism, what you see right there is your equivalent of a 1950s EGR valve. I tell you this, and you can see it says hot, the other side actually says cold. You can adjust that to your current temperature so you can run your tractor better. Now, forget everything I just said because the chances are yours are going to be stuck so solid you will never move them again. When I bought my tractor, my manifold, you actually see my manifold's different, was actually cracked out here. I bought all this new from Steiner, they were quickest to get it to me. I took a 10-pound sledgehammer to try and save my other one just to see if I could be cheap and send my new one back. A 10-pound sledgehammer would not get it out. So we'll tell you how stuck it is, and to seal it up, you can use high temp RTV. It will actually last. That's got plenty of hours of runtime, and it's still there. So, the next question is, what oil do I put in this? And this is something that I think plagues every tractor page on Facebook, so I'm going to answer that question once and for all. Coming up next. Almost forgot something. Radiator, make sure you have coolant, not straight water. Straight water is just going to give you rust problems. Coolant mixed good enough for your climate. Fill it to just above the top of the core, and just use regular old green Ninja Turtle fluid, which you used to use. You don't have to use the fancy stuff now, just regular old green antifreeze. Okay, now to the actual oil question. The consensus of the oil question is you want a diesel engine oil. The reason being is oil technology has changed so much since the 1950s. You probably can't get half the oil they talk about in that book, in your operator's manual. Diesel engine oil still has zinc in it. Zinc is a lubricant, a metallic lubricant that will keep your camshaft happy and bumpy, not flat. I personally use John Deere Plus 50 1540. If you look at my channel, go back, there's a cold start video. You can see I cranked my tractor, I think 2 or 3 times, and I had full oil pressure. So that is what I personally run. I know some guys use Shell Rotella, but a diesel engine oil is going to be what you're going to want to have in your tractor. As for the filter and the O-ring, filter number is Alpha Roger 26350, and the gasket is Alpha 519R. Okay, I did miss setting the valve lash on your overhead valves. It's just removing the 2 nuts, pulling it off, and setting the valves as you would as anything else. If you're not familiar with setting valves, check back in about a couple months and I'll hopefully have a video doing it. I need to pull mine off because my valve cover gasket is leaking. And how to actually change the oil. So to actually change the oil on your tractor, you need to remove that plug right there. That is pipe thread. A little bit of sealant will help it not leak like mine. If that plug is stuck, something you can do is you can take a hammer and don't beat the daylights out of it, but give it a couple good wraps and help it break some of that rust loose. This cap right here contains your oil filter. Be careful tightening it back up so that you do not strip the threads out, because if you do, then you're laying underneath it while oil's dripping on you to try and repair it. It's not fun. Okay, we're gonna move over here. This big cap right here. Remove that. That is how you add oil. To check oil, right there. Fighting it. Okay, right there is a check bolt. You back the bolt off, and when oil starts to drip out of it, that is when you have enough oil in it. If your oil is cold like mine, it'll take a little bit. There is a kit to convert these over to a dipstick. Steiner sells it, so just be aware, if it has a dipstick, use it like a dipstick. Okay, that should handle everything on an oil change. Okay, moving on back. To change the transmission and rear end lubricant, or oil, there's 2 plugs underneath your tractor. The first one is right there. It's going to be right underneath the drawbar. Your best bet is just to pull your drawbar out with the pin that is right there. This brings up a little side note. Do check those pins. These tractors are 60, 70, even older, years old. Those pins can be worn out. I have seen them break at poles. It is not fun. The other pin, drain is right there. It takes a 3/4 drive ratchet, or get you under here a little better. 3/4 drive ratchet, socket extension, whatever you prefer. And there's one other important thing you need to do, and that is to change the oil in the first reduction housing. To add that oil back in after you drain it, there's a plug right there. To drain it, it is this little itty bitty pipe plug right there. The book says it takes approximately 1 quart. So when you need your oil, the whole transmission, everything will hold just under 5 gallons. If you buy a 5-gallon bucket, you'll have about 2-3 quarts left over. My recommendation is just buy a 5-gallon bucket and a 1-quart bottle. Dump the 1-quart bottle in your first reduction housing and move on with life. Moving on back just a little bit, brakes. I strongly recommend just pulling them off, pulling them apart, cleaning them, and lubing them all back up. To adjust them, because I don't think anyone ever actually adjusted these back in the day. To adjust them, all you need to do is Focus. Tighten the screw, and then back it off 5. So, that is way too bright of a light. That square rod coming out the back, tighten it till you can't tighten it no more, don't reef on it, and then back it off 5 clicks. When you take it apart, you'll understand what it is. That I'm talking about by clicks, there's a little cone with notches in it. But do take that apart, clean it, check it. If you need new linings, Steiner Tractor, not sponsored by them, I swear, has pre-riveted ones. Trying to rivet these brake linings on is a bit of a bugger, unless you happen to live in an area that has an original 2-cylinder shop that is now your John Deere dealer that has the actual tool sitting in the corner. If you're going to try and rivet your brake linings on, soak them in water overnight. That will give you the best chance of getting them on without cracking them. Now this is not a maintenance thing, just a good check. Pop your hubcap off. There's a bolt that holds your clutch driver to your crank. Make sure that bolt is tight and that clutch driver hasn't sat there wallowing on the crankshaft and worn the splines out. There is plenty of pictures, if you do a little digging, of horseshoe nails, wire beaten into there to try and tighten it up because that clutch is sitting there trying to fall off. Your clutch brake pulley pad right there, you can get new ones already riveted, and you can also just re-rivet them yourself. Just make sure you have it and that the rivets aren't showing. You know, if it's got nasty grooves in it, it's time to replace it. All right, now we're sitting in the operator's seat. Other good things to check: there's a boot on your shifter. If you're going to have your tractor sitting outside, make sure that boot's there. It'll keep water from getting into your transmission. One thing I forgot to mention: if you drain the oil out of your transmission rear end and it is like a milkshake, just full of water, nasty, it actually does say in the operator's manual, this is still done, to refill with diesel fuel. Don't put it under load, but just drive it around and that will help flush it out, drain your fuel right back out. To refill the transmission, you probably want to put the oil back in it, is that square-headed plug right there. Don't mistake it for the live PTO housing. This one has a square plug that you would need. This will be a male square, not the female. Make sure you put it in the right place. Other thing of note, check the electrical. My tractor does not have a single fuse on it, so if something goes wrong, it's just going to burn to the ground. And yeah, there should be a rotary switch here. Seeing as my tractor has a magneto and it's been farmerized, I don't. But there should be an actual switch, and you can kind of see the positions there. That is for if you had an all-fuel tractor. Most of these had these drilled in there. But if you have an all-fuel, this is how you'd switch it from your distillate over to your regular gasoline and turn it off. But regardless, most of these in the two-digit 2-cylinder world are gasoline. Something else, the steering shafts usually are pretty worn, so just poke a little grease in there. It's a little bit messy, but it just kind of helps them steer a little easier and turn a little bit easier. I talked earlier about little oil caps. I did actually find one that's still on my tractor. So that little cap right there, flip it out and you can drizzle a little oil in there to help lubricate bearings and bushings and whatever else. All right, we're getting towards the rear. So there's your battery under the seat. Yes, service your battery like you would anything else. Next up is your power trawl, your hydraulic system. So this nice big round cap on top here, that is where you add fluid. To check it, you can see a drain cock right there, or a check cock as the book would call it. Book says just open it up and fill till it runs out, and if you need to drain it, there's a plug here on the bottom that will nicely dump it all over the place and make a huge mess for you. So yeah, enjoy it. Now, if you're going to run a cylinder off your power trawl, you need a set of these.
preferably less crusty. I actually got lucky and found these in a buddy's barn. They were throwing them out and didn't know what they were, and I was all sorts of giddy because they are nothing but a red power family, and I got the only John Deere part they had. But those will plug in where your dummy plugs are. Hopefully you don't have a homemade 3-point bracket in the way. Those will go in there. That'll let you run a cylinder. I'm not going to get into it too much. Read your book so you know how to operate and understand this. Controls, this is where you need to read it in your operator's manual. Next up, I'm going to talk about your live PTO housing. This is an option. Not all of them have it. If you have a standard PTO housing, I don't know what to tell you. I think it's just all under the same transmission lubricant, but refer to your operator's manual. This housing requires an oddball oil, 10 weight non-detergent. It is not the easiest thing to find anymore. When I actually went to go find it, I ended up going to 2 local farm stores. It wasn't until I found an old timer I was asking for it, and he literally turns around and looks at me and goes, "You're working on an old 2-cylinder, aren't you? I got some in back hidden. Let me go grab it for you." True story. So 10 weight non-detergent, not 10W30, not straight 10 non-detergent. Big old fill plug there, put your 3/4 ratchet that you have out from draining your transmission. And to drain it, there is a plug on the bottom. Can't see it, but it's there. You'll know it. You'll know it when you find it. It only holds approximately, I'll go double check the book so I don't tell you wrong. 2.14 quarts. And it looks like, so you can see what it actually is. Yeah, focus, there we go. Non-detergent 10 weight lubricating oil. So, a little bit odd to find, but it is still out there. Last little bit of maintenance. You're going to have a grease fitting on the end of your axle. It might be a pipe plug. The book actually says to remove the plug and put a grease fitting there, so yours may or may not have it, but grease it there. On your rock shaft housing, left and right. And of course, you have on your other side. And then if you have a 3-point hitch, you'll have a couple on there. Now that should cover just about everything maintenance-wise. From here on out, this is just kind of words of wisdom that I've learned through pain and suffering. So just hang on here, you might learn a thing or two. I'm going to go over how to move your wheels in so you can get it on your car trailer when you're digging it out of a barn. What that mess on the back of my 3-point hitch is, and just a few other little tips and tricks that I've learned from the old timers through the years. So hang on, keep watching. As for recommended oil for the power trawl, most people are just running high guard or whatever their farm is using for hydraulic oil. The book says 30 weight oil. I would just recommend putting high guard in it because it's going to get mixed with whatever you're sharing implements with. If it's the one and only piece of equipment you have, it's one thing. But just regular hydraulic oil, use John Deere high guard. It's kind of the modern consensus. So you need to get the wheels set in, so that way you can get your new project on a trailer. So this is how to deal with your wheels. So, first things first, this rack right here, you need that at 12 o'clock, straight up and down. Here's your pinion shaft right here. When you get this all broke loose, you're going to use that to slide your wheel in and out. Notice your bolts. You have 3 that are $1.25. You got these 2 here in the middle. These are what are called jack bolts. So we'll go around the other side and you can get a little better look. What you have here are wedges that are pulled into that cast housing, their center. So what those are going to do is going to put pressure on this, and in perfect theory, in a perfect world, but if your tractor jacked up, you loosen these up, don't take them all the way out, otherwise your wheel will fall off. You put some pressure on these, your wedge goes plunk, and then you screw your wheel in or out however you need to go. They aren't going to work like that. Now, in the words of one of my college instructors, this is where you do naughty things with a big hammer. So when I did mine, I got these torqued up pretty good with a 1/2-inch breaker bar. I would not recommend your impact wrench on these. And then you line up and you drill the end of your shaft with a sledgehammer. Now, if you're going to beat the crap out of these, some guys might tack weld a plate of steel, just take some of that impact, but it's kind of on you. But keep swinging. When I did mine, I cracked it twice. It sounded like a shotgun went off. The wheel tipped, and I screwed her right in. Took me like 20-30 minutes. Now, that's if you're lucky. When I did this side, yes, my tractor is missing half the jack bolts. It was a different story. This side took me about 2.5 hours. So when you get all the pressure in there, you start beating on your shaft and it will not go. You got two options. If you're in a shop and you got an air hammer in here, be gentle. This is all cast. You can crack it and vibrate it. That will help break them loose. Otherwise, a big piece of well pipe and a bottle jack, that's kind of a tactic guys use on the letter series that don't have the jack bolts and aren't this style. Is you put a pipe over your axle, bottle jack, chain it up around through your center, pray, and start driving it, and yeah, it's not fun. This one of mine, I got in here with an air hammer and was able to actually work my wedges out, and my pinion shaft was stuck. So what I ended up doing is pulling my top wedge completely out, getting it down, pulling this wedge up, stuck an impact on here, and ran it until the smoke came out. After that, just lubed it up and set your wheels in. Now, if you're actually going to be doing some farming with it, if you go to your back here, you can actually see it says tractor center line. Put your tape measure right there and you can run it out to the middle. That center line is the center of your drawbar, so if you need to set your tractor on like 30-inch rows for modern farming, there you go. So, wheel wedges can be a pain or they can go real easy. Just take your time. If you have time on your side, penetrating oil can be your friend or it can be your enemy because it won't let the rust powderize and fall out. It's kind of a opinion on what it takes. I've done it both ways. About the same either way for me. So what is this conglomeration on the back of my tractor? So when I was going to put an 8-foot blade on the back of my tractor and move snow, I was asking a question on Facebook on the Two-Cylinder Club page about lift capacity and how likely it was my front end was going to come on the ground, and a very knowledgeable gentleman who I will leave nameless, who gives the speech about these at the Gathering the Green, the 800 series hitches, strongly recommended a centering bar instead of the typical cross chains. That is because these parts are not as strong as they are on the 20 and 30 series. In a side pull, like say if you had your, in my case, my blade kicked and I was trying to windrow, a side pull could actually have some force behind it and could damage the tractor. So I'll try and throw a picture of the actual factory bracket, which they are out there, or you can get yourself a piece of angle iron, a little bit of welding, and you can get that. So that is a centering bar. All it does is just make sure that it's going to lift straight up and down. So that is all that is. Another note, if you have one of these 3 points, don't do anything stupid with it. They're really expensive to try and replace, to buy, or to add. Other thing, do not grease your lower pivot bolts. If you grease these and you try and use your tractor in the winter, that grease will be so thick you will never get what you're on trying to hook up attached, because you'll be fighting this. Also, pull your pins out here, your links for telescope, lube them up with something very, very light if you're worried about rust. If not, just leave them dry. The guy before me used like heavy moly grease on that one, and when I tried to hook my plow up the first time in the winter, I had to throw a chain in there and hook it to a tree to get my link to slide out because it was so freaking thick. So that is what that mess is, and just a little bit of history on the old 800 and 801 series hitch. Not an expert on it, never will be. Just thankful somebody else knows it.
That should cover just about everything for maintenance and just some other tips and tricks. I actually got this video idea from a post on the Two Cylinder Club of Facebook, which currently has about 62,000 members, that somebody suggested we should make a video to just copy and send to all these newbies that just got the tractor or just found it. So this is going to get posted on there. I'm guessing between 62,000 people, somebody is in the comments is going to tell me exactly what I did wrong, which is good, which is what I want. I don't know everything about my tractor. I don't know everything about anything. But other people know a little bit about everything else. So there's going to be a part 2 to this, or a continuation, a redaction of what I screwed up, or what other people suggest. So please check back for that. Go get your operator's manual ordered, and go get this thing out of the weeds or that barn or wherever else you happen to find it. Document it. Join a Facebook group. There's great guys there that'll help you, point you in the right direction. And if you also are interested in it, you can still trace the serial numbers back on your tractor and find out when it was built, where it was shipped to. That's quite a unique thing. It's the Two Cylinder Club. Just Google Two Cylinder Club or John Deere Two Cylinder Club. It'll come up with it. It's a whole organization. It's about 30 or 40 bucks, but you can get the full rundown of where your tractor came from, what it left the factory with. It's really neat. And if it's a family tractor, it might be kind of neat to have hanging on the wall. So, thanks. Like, subscribe, comment, point out what I did wrong. Put your 2 cents in the comments. Thank you very much.